folks, this is Carol Ann from Shining His Light or Cavi Mums Loves, whichever channel you're watching on. I have been working on a quilt, and you may have seen some of my prior videos about it. I've been learning to quilt since about January, February of this year, working with an organization that ends up making a bunch of quilts through the year and donates them to long-term care facilities at the end of the year at Christmas time as gifts. But this is the next one I've been working on, and I just wanted to show my next step. Now, this quilt, all I'm doing is the top side, the colorful side. Once I'm finished with that, it will go back to the organization, to the ladies that are really expert at this. I'm a newbie. And they will add the back side and the filler, which is typically cotton batting or something of that nature. And they'll do a fine job of it, let me tell you. They also add a little, I forget what it's called, but it's a smaller border all around the very edges that seals it more or less and makes it look neat and will prevent the seams from coming apart around the edges, etc. So anyway, what I'm doing today is I'm adding the final colored border on the colorful side of the quilt. Now there's a white border, and then there's a dark blue border, and now what I'm adding is this colorful multicolored reddish orange border. And I have had some assistance along the way figuring out what borders, what material to use for the borders other than the white one. It was pre-selected. But in order to sew this border on to the quilt, and this is the last piece of border I have to sew. So once I finish that, I will show you my finished portion, which will be the finished top side of the quilt. And then once the ladies finish it, hopefully I'll have an opportunity to take a picture of it or do a little video to show you what the final product looks like. But I don't always get that opportunity, but we'll see. Anyway, so I'm going to pin with handy dandy, I don't know if you can see this at all, little straight pins. I'm going to pin about every 6 inches along this strip, and then after I pin it, I will take it that direction. Behind, really, the camera is my sewing machine, and I will sew that on. I'll try to video that too, but I can't promise. Anyway, here I go. I'm going to pin. And I pin pointing toward the direction of where the seam will be. So, like so. And to do this, as you can see, you put the top side of the quilt is here. This is what the person will see when they look at their quilt. And then you take the top side of this strip and lay it against the top side of the quilt. So it's right side to right side. That's what quilters call it. And then what I'm seeing here is the back side of my colorful strip. So right side to right side, and I'm pinning about every 6 inches. And I just pin all the way along until I get to the other end of the strip and the quilt top. This is not the final quilt, trust me. There's way more to it. I don't even know how to do the finishing steps. They use a large piece of equipment at the workshop that's called a long arm, and I'm sure they use regular sewing machines too for portions of it, but I've not even been able to had an opportunity to really watch them finish a quilt. But I stopped by last week and did some videoing, and while I was there, in the video, I think I mentioned supplies when I was actually videoing what were a large group of finished quilts that they have completed all the way, and they are ready to be packaged up and gifted to the recipients come Christmas time. So she's told me that they have about 110, and their goal is 160, so we are getting there. We're just a little more than halfway through this year, So I suspect, unless some of their hardest workers and fastest workers get sick, Lord forbid, they will finish with plenty of quilts, at least 160. And the reason 160 is our number is because we've already apparently made arrangements with one of the long-term care facilities in the area, and they have told us that they typically have about 160 residents. So yeah, so each resident will get their own quilt, and some of them love it. From what I hear, this will be my first Christmas to participate in that part of this organization, but I also hear that occasionally you'll hear a complaint from someone who's, oh, we always get quilts. Which I can just picture that, because I'm a retired nurse, and the last couple of years of my career, I had never worked in a long-term care facility before, aside from I worked at a hospital that had a floor, one unit in their hospital that was long-term care, and I was a supervisor for a while, so I would go there and help or supervise, make rounds, find out what's happening, you know, all of that. So I was a little familiar with it, but I had never worked in one until the last couple of years of my career. And even just as a nurse in a regular hospital or anywhere, you hear people say some of the most unusual things. That's all I'm going to say. So I have added all of my pins. I'm going to rearrange my camera, so I'm going to shut this off for a minute and turn it around so you can watch the sewing that's being done, and you'll see me sew this handy dandy strip to my quilt top. And then I'll give you a peek at what it's going to look like. It's not finished. Like I said, it won't be today, but at least you'll see what the top looks like. Also, just to mention, there is a little leftover material right here. It's just a little bit too long, about an inch. So I am going to also cut that off before I sew. So that'll all be taken care of. All right, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back at my sewing machine. I'm just trying to get my quilt material organized a little bit on the table and my lap so that it doesn't want to wrinkle up here or bunch up, and it's easy as possible. I still will have to stop every now and then and rearrange things a bit, but to allow, as I'm sewing, the material just to go straight through here where it's supposed to, so I don't end up with any zigzags and that sort of thing. So I pinned it so that these two edges right along the very edge, the edge of the strip of material and the edge of the previously added dark blue border, are flush right together, and that's to make a nice neat seam, as well as keeping my seam straight as I'm sewing with my machine. And there are some little tricks that I didn't know, I've never seen before, that I learned. And one is, there's a magnet here with a little piece of metal on the edge of it, and supposedly the magnet will hold this piece of metal to this foot plate, but we add some tape just for security's sake so it doesn't move, because that's what helps the seamstress, sewer, to keep that straight, nice seam going as they're sewing the material through. So I'm going to be sewing. I won't talk too much because the machine's a little bit loud, and you can watch. If you're not familiar with sewing machines and how they operate, there is an electric cord attached to the machine and attached to a foot pedal on the floor. So to make it go, you step on the foot pedal. And there we go. coming to a little seam that I had to make because my strip of cloth for this final colorful border was not long enough to do the whole quilt, the length of the quilt. So cut a strip that would make it the correct length, and I sewed that strip onto the initial strip. Alright, and there I sewed that seam down. And when I'm finished, I'm going to press with an iron the whole thing. And I'll be pressing it from the back side, which means all the little seams that have little edges on that back side, I'm going to be pressing down flat. Everything in a similar direction as much as possible to make it nice and smooth. Uh-oh. I ran out of thread. What happened there? Hang on one second. Huh. I believe my spool underneath here, it's a small round spool of thread that you put on the inside, down and underneath all of this, that brings that second part of the thread up to make a seam. And every now and then you have to replace it because it runs out. I'm not even sure I have any more. I get those from my workshop lady, Miss Lori Ann. Ah, it is empty. And so I have about 4 inches left, 3 or 4 here, that needs to be sewn, which I will do. If I don't have one of these that's full of thread, I will have to pick one up from her. See what I have? Oh, I have one left. A full one. Yay! Alright, let's put the empty one on. Since I do have my spool. So, the spool, and I hope I'm putting it in the correct direction. This thread is going back into, let's see, this direction, and then it goes in there, that way, and then, without letting it fall out of this little piece that goes in the sewing machine, I'm going to put it back in. Yep, I'm going to put it back in. Has to go in just so, and then you snap it in place. Yep, like that. That's the bobbin. I keep calling it the spool. That is a bobbin. That little piece of equipment I took out of there that had the little thread in it, that is called a bobbin, not a spool. This up here is the spool of thread. That little item is a bobbin. And you have to load the bobbins with thread. They don't come that way. And then you put it together, and then you turn. There's a knob here at the end of the machine. You turn it, and it allows the needle to go down inside the machine and hopefully pick up the bobbin thread. It pulls the thread from underneath that's in that bobbin. It grabs it and pulls it up here, and then you take your little, this is what I do, my little seam ripper. It's got a nice little tip on it, and you get a hold of that thread and you pull it up a little more. So now I've got my spool and my bobbin thread, and that's what I need in order to finish this. So what I'm going to do on this seam is put it back where it was on the machine and resume what I was doing, but what I will do, that is not meeting like it should. I'm going to fix that. There we go. And then I'm going to start back about 1/4 of an inch, so the original seam will have just a double seam right there for about 1/4 of an inch, and then I'll finish the whole strip. All right, put the foot down. Make sure this is as it should be, straight. Taking that pin out. I think I can do this better that way with my fingers. There we go. Okay, got that right there. And now, as long as I see that my seam is complete all the way along, it's easier for me to look on the back side because it's dark blue and the thread is white, so it's very easy to spot the thread, and I can check my seam all along and make sure it is what it should be, and it looks great. So I'm going to cut this little bit of extra thread off that was at the other end and throw it away. What's that? I like to keep things a bit organized, otherwise I lose them. Here's a straight pin going in my pin cushion. All right, now, since the seam looks good, I'm going to go ahead and remove all of my straight pins and put them back in the pin cushion. And there should be maybe 12, something like that. I don't count them. I should. If I counted when I put them in and counted when I take them out, I would know whether or not I lost any on the floor. Which is actually a good thing to know. So I should actually start doing that and make it a habit, shouldn't I? I am going to hold this up. I'm going to fix my camera again, and then I'm going to hold up the quilt, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. Yeah. So here is the completed quilt top. I decided to just lay it on my bed. Easier than holding it. So anyway, yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with that. I think it's a very colorful, bright quilt. Yeah. So there she is. Not quite finished, but close. And that's the most recent step in my quilting journey. All right. Hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you very much for doing so. And we'll see you again the next time. God bless you. Keep him in your heart.